I usually avoid big four patterns because I find they don't fit well. They are too big. There's nothing super special about them. Plus, I really like supporting independent artists. But when I saw that this pattern had bust cups, it goes A, B, C, and D. I decided to give it a try, and I'm actually quite happy that I did. I find it very hard for me to find a pattern where I can actually button it up all the way. And this one I can, which is fun. And yeah, what does all the work are the bust starts and the waist starts. That's really what's creating the shaping for this pattern, which is the McCall's 6966. I know that usually they run quite large, so I actually strategically sized down. I went based off of their size chart. I looked at it and saw, again, because usually they run quite large, I decided to go with one size smaller than what my measurements put me at. So my measurements put me a size 16, but I decided to go with size 14. And I'm actually quite happy that I did that because if I were to go with my size, the 16, it would have been way too large. In terms of fitting, I found there's no gaping at the underarm, which is usually the problem. There's no gaping at the buttons. And yeah, it's able to button all the way up, which is unusual for a button up with someone with my measurements. And it's nice that it actually gives the definition that you want from button up without it being big and baggy. I would say my favorite part of making this dress, beyond seeing it come together and the fact that it has pockets, was making the buttonholes, even though I made them slightly incorrectly. I loved it because I recently got a new sewing machine, the Janome Memorycraft 6700P, and this machine does buttonholes like a dream. It's incredible. You just kind of set it and it goes and it just creates the hole exactly how you want. Every other machine before this, I've had to struggle with it. I had to do a test. It worked on the test, then I'd start my actual fabric and then it would start tearing or it wouldn't do it correctly and I'd have to start again and it needed the right type of interfacing or something. I just have always had buttonhole issues. I've actually avoided patterns that do buttonholes for this reason. And when I got the Janome, I was told that I would love it and that I would no longer dread buttonholes. And sure enough, they were right. I'm very, very impressed. One of the problems I did was the interfacing that I used was not correct. Since making this dress, I have found that there is a fusible cotton interfacing, which works fantastically, and it just provides the right amount of stability without creating too much thickness. And what I used, which is just something random, I don't even know which one it was, it's just the placket is just too thick now. Another issue that I ran into was the buttonholes. I kind of decided to just wing it, which is a mistake. I recommend not doing that. I recommend you always plan out your buttonholes specifically from your waistband right here. Because if you don't, you do what I did, which is you end up having a gap between the buttons right at the waistband, and there will always be pressure at the waistband, which is something I unfortunately had to relearn when I made this. So what I have is I have a snap here to keep it closed because I couldn't remake it. And it was too much of a headache. I ran out of fabric. This was the only fabric I had. I originally had wanted to put in sleeves, but I mismeasured and there was not enough fabric for that. That's okay. It happens. So yeah, overall, this pattern fits. I didn't really need to make any adjustments. The only adjustments I made were not necessarily to the fit as much as it was I wanted a longer midi length, which the pattern didn't account for. And I also really wanted, I just took the collar off, which I'm happy with. And what's really pleasant is that it actually works for the small rib cage and large bust as long as you size down. So I do recommend making a toile. I've been sewing for a long time, so kind of from experience, I knew that, or I had a, from experience, I had a feeling that this would work. I did run a risk of cutting into my fabric immediately. I recommend against doing that if you're a beginner. But if you've been sewing for a while and kind of have a feel for how some pattern companies run, uh, you could probably do the same. but do it at your own risk. If you usually skip big four patterns, this one is worth reconsidering, especially if you have a large bust and small rib cage. Subscribe if this helped. I do honest fit tests and sewing tips every week. My reflective pieces are at iwantmirror.com. Thanks for watching with me.